What I want to do is, since yesterday we talked about breaking data up into chunks and routing them all over the network, this is sort of the flip side of all of that, how to get all those chunks back together into something which is semantic for us. So it's about how to represent files, documents, collections, and the works. In my slides from yesterday, I sort of mentioned that the chunks that your files are broken down into get assembled, get put together into a Merkle tree. That is that all your data gets put into chunks, the chunks get hashed, the hashes get collected together into new chunks and so on, and this gets repeated until everything is represented by a single root hash, and this is the hash that you would use to access whatever content we're talking about. So let me show you what that looks like. So let me do this live here. Can you see that, or make that bigger? So every file has a hash, and it's not the hash of the file itself. So in terms of swarm, if I talk about the swarm hash of a file, I mean whatever the root hash ends up being once I've chunked it and built up this Merkle tree. So for example, I've got a file that was from, I don't know which one of you put a Twitter photo up yesterday of a talk. So the command to see the hash of a file is swarm hash, swarm, and then hash. And the file I'm querying is on my desktop SOS talk, and then it's sos.jpg. So this is a JPEG, and you get the swarm hash in the file, and this gives me the hash of this file. And if I query swarm for that file, this is awkward, so I can do localhost 8500, that's where my swarm is running, bzzr, the raw protocol, this raw access file, and then I paste this hash in there. I'm going to add a query string content type equals image .jpg. That should load the image right there. And what that has really done is it queried that root hash, which got a chunk of other hashes, queried those hashes all the way until I got the data layer. And so that's great. That's how I would access a file. Let's do another one. Let's do a little HTML example. So desktop SOS talk. So what I've got here is a little index HTML, little file. I'm going to try to put my little website on Swarm. I've just written, hi, title, Swarm Armored Summit, and include this image. And the point is, I could upload this HTML file the same way I uploaded the image. It would work fine. I would load the HTML, but this loading the image SOS JPEG would not work because one file knows nothing about the other one. So the index HTML in a vacuum would just load perfectly, but the image, there'd be no. So then, of course, I could write the hash of the image in here. So try to get the BZZ raw URL, but that's really impractical as well because that's not how we do work. What ends up happening? Well, there's a upload command, which I won't going to bore you with, where I upload this entire directory, the directory which contains my, my image and my index file. And the command gives me back a hash. And when I load that hash in Swarm, what actually happens, this is, when I do the Swarm hash of the index file, I get one hash. I Swarm hash of the picture, I get another. And what this thing is up here, it's actually a third object, and it's called a manifest. And manifests in Swarm are the things we use to tie many Swarm assets together. I can show you the content of the manifest by inserting the R again, the BZZ raw. And then I need to give a content type. Content type is, I'm just going to call this text dot, just text is enough? Yeah. So that's what it looks like. It's a JSON object. And what it's doing, it's saying, well, it's a key value index. So it says index.html maps to this hash, and then, well, it's a key value pair, so that when I type, when I load this site, and then add slash index.html, like so, what actually happens is this thing is loaded, that's the manifest. That manifest, in turn, explains what index.html should resolve to, and that's the content of this HTML file, which loads sos.jpg. Well, that is referenced in the exact same manifest. So it's the manifest that lists all the different paths and files that you might want, and that's sort of how I can get named paths, anything after that hash, for whatever is listed in that manifest. So the key here is I can now access files by name, and I no longer have to access them by hash, because the manifest takes care of all of that. You can have human-readable paths. And the only thing that's left is the original hash of the manifest, which is that's the part that I would then get a name for on the ENS. So when you see us load a site like the swarm.eth, what we're really doing is the swarm.eth is registered to the hash of a manifest, and that manifest contains the index.html, it contains the images, it contains all the rest. Now, there's a trick Lewis showed me yesterday. If I type list equals true, is it? Is Lewis here? I can actually see the contents of that manifest. Again, with bzz raw, I can load the raw manifest to see the JSON if I want. Yeah, so that's sort of how the different components work together, what you register on ENS, how you get names for files, and how that all ties together.